Debajo de las estrellas, donde estuvo mi Jesús, en el jardín del Getsemaní.
Greetings, everyone, family and friends. I wish with a heavy heart that I could be there as we all come together and wish my grandpa a loving farewell. I will be brief but sincere. I love my grandpa and hope that I make him proud of what I have to share. My grandpa was many things to my family. To my father, he was a strict man who spoke directly without reserve and held strongly to his faith without question. To my tia Diana, he was an honest man and a straight arrow through and through, who cared deeply for his family. To my mom, he was the definition of a servant of God, a worshiper, a truly disciplined student of the Word of God. To my brother, a serious man who enjoyed a simple lifestyle, and was frugal in how he spent his earnings. To my Theo Jimmy, Grandpa was a giving man, of that of himself and of his faith. He was hard-working and steadfast in his responsibilities not only as a father, but as a grandfather as well. But to me, my grandfather was something rare and unique. Beneath it all, Grandpa was a very humble and gentle man, but most of all, he was a loving man. What comes to my mind immediately when I picture him is his smile. It's a smile I only saw in one other place, and that place was and is with my dad. It was a smile that was comforting and made you feel like you could take on anything. Whether he was tired or concentrating on something in his shed, some project, when he saw me, he smiled. That always stuck out to me. I remember that smile when I was 6 years old. I was staying at my grandparents' apartment, which I have to admit at the time I enjoyed. He took me in his old black Ford pickup to a toy store called Children's Palace. It's no longer there, but as we walked in at the time, I noticed the way my grandpa was walking. It was kind of side to side, sort of like a penguin. I imitated and wondered if he noticed. He probably did, but I really couldn't tell. I was 6 years old. And another thought came to my mind, and I just thought, why are we here? And then I looked up at him and he smiled. We were here to get one of my favorite toys at that age. It was Tinker Toys. Not just any Tinker Toys. This particular Tinker Toy was rather special. It had a big old orange piece that me and my brother just begged Grandma and Grandpa to get. And today he was getting that for us. It was moments like that I saw my grandpa, that he showed his heart of hearts. He truly loved us. He loved me. He loved my brother. However, with all those memories, there was another memory that I had. My grandpa wasn't perfect. No one is, and he wasn't really not an exception at all. He was just a man. I was 19 and I visited my grandparents on a break I had from a ministry I was with. We were going to barbecue, I remember. Grandpa got all my favorite things. He got some fajitas, some tripas, some sausages. Yeah, it was gonna be a good one. And he told me to help him and start the grill. So I'm like, okay, cool, I'll do that. And when I opened up the grill, I noticed there was a bunch of dirt in it. I was like, what the heck is this doing here? We don't use dirt when we're cooking, especially grilling. I don't recall using that, so I dumped it all. I dumped it all, and boy, was that a mistake. Oh, I remember Grandpa. When Grandpa noticed that I freaking dumped dumped all that dirt out. He was pissed. Now, granted, my grandpa was not a perfect man, and he was prone to anger, and he did cuss. Granted, it was in Spanish, but he did cuss. I've heard him before, but I never heard him cuss at me personally. It was always that some vieja or some guy that he just cussed at him because he didn't like the way what they were doing or how they were doing it. But I remember it. My grandpa was pissed and he looked at me directly in the eyes and he called me a pendejo. Normally that's probably no big deal for y'all, but the way he said it, his tone, the anger behind it, I knew what he called me and it hurt. Not only did it hurt, it pissed me off. I was very, very angry at Grandpa when he called me that. I would, as I usually do when I'm mad, especially when I don't want to tell someone off, I usually don't hold back, but this is my grandpa, and I was trying very hard not to. I swallowed my anger and I popped my fist, and I walked off. Oh, I was furious with Grandpa. He called me a pendejo. I hated it. I hated it. I couldn't believe that he actually called me that. Could have called me a fool. No, he called me a pendejo. And but as I walked off, I went inside. Grandma saw me and she was wondering why I was so mad. I told Grandma what happened. She understood. She understood my anger. She could tell I was struggling not to go off. I was gonna blow up. So Grandma just told me, "Go look. Just go cool off in the room. Go cool off in your room. Don't worry about it, mijito. Just go cool off in the room." So I'm like, all right. So I did. But as I said, Grandpa was a very unique person. Very, very unique. Most people, when they know they did wrong, they don't admit it. They just like, screw it. Oh well. Not Grandpa, and especially not to the ones he loved. Especially not to me or Sam, but in this case, to me. Grandpa, after a while, he probably cooled off, and probably some words from Grandma. He knew what he did was wrong. So about 10, maybe 15 minutes later, he came to my room. I looked up at him and I saw his eyes. There was a sadness on there because he was truly sorry. I just looked at him and he didn't have to say another word. He didn't have to apologize. I knew what he came in the room for. And I immediately forgave him that moment. I looked at him. After forgiving him, I hugged him. Grandpa hugged me. He held me. He didn't have to, but he did. He apologized. He apologized over and over again. I remember giving him a hug and I felt that he hadn't shaven. Grandpa, that was unique about Grandpa too. I didn't care. I actually liked it. That was like the best part of hugging Grandpa. When you go in, he loved on you. He'd rub you with his cheek and you could feel the stubble, but I didn't care. I didn't care. I loved it. I always loved it. I knew my grandfather loved me. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, I knew he loved me. He would never want to hurt me. And that just proved it. It takes a lot for a grown man, to admit when he's wrong, especially to someone younger, or his grandson for that matter. But I knew he loved me. He never wanted to hurt me or anything. And I loved him. And I will miss him. I will miss him. I love you, Grandpa. And I'll see you soon. Thank you.